A coach that is experienced, a coach that no matter who he has on the pitch is able to shape up some incredible matches against some of the toughest teams in the world and has seen himself bring these sides to Champions League finals. The only thing missing in his resume is that final result, that final game, that final performance to put him over the edge. But everything else has been absolutely masterful. And the man that I am speaking about is your father. Diego Simeone. Diego Simeone leading this Atletico Madrid side to another quarterfinal appearance after an insane matchup in the round of 16 against the runners-up of last year's tournament, Inter Milan. Atletico is now slated to face off against Borussia Dortmund, the first game being at the Wanda, the second one being in Dortmund. We were talking about Arsenal and that being an exciting factor. I can't imagine the excitement that you have, that you're withholding with the potential of Atletico making it to another semifinal in the Champions League. Can you imagine that in this fucking season that they've had? And my first question to you is, before we even get to the predictions, is if Atleti wins this matchup, are you going to the Wanda?
I'm going to the Metropolitano. I'm going to do everything I can in my power. I'll spend $20,000. I don't care what it takes. If we get to the semifinal, I'm going to be there at the Metropolitano. And if I can't find my way in, I'll do whatever it takes, bro. I will do whatever it takes. But, bro, ever since we've been into Milan before the draw, I've been shaking. Got the shakes.
Get the shakes, bro.
And I don't know if it's going to go away until that fateful night in Spain against Dortmund. And I'm just going to go right into it. I've been dreaming of Dortmund, man. I've been dreaming of Dortmund ever since we've been Inter Milan. It was just a quick little 1 day and a half before the draw. Yeah. And I think thousands of other Atleti fans have been dreaming the same thing. Here's what's crazy, though. I think Dortmund have been dreaming about Atletico, too. And that's what makes this matchup so interesting, because I see this as 50-50. I think either team has the same amount of reasons to beat the other, and I think either reason is very probable to occur. So this matchup is just going to be so even, but for very different reasons. They have completely different styles. The way Atletico can win, though, is if we bully them. That's how we beat Inter Milan at the Metropolitano. We use the physicality of our midfield, talking about players like Llorente, Rodrigo de Paul, Coque, Mario Hermoso, Savic, who like to go up and just put a body on any player that has the ball. That's how we're going to beat Dortmund. Nullify their fluidity in the midfield by bullying them physically. Now, here's the thing. Doesn't always work, right? And that's why Atletico have been not that great this season. It's why we lost that first game against Inter Milan, because they found a way against that brutality, against that physicality. If we can't touch the opponent's midfield, we're stretched. And I think, unlike a lot of people think, Atletico don't put on defensive masterclasses anymore. That's not how we play. Instead, we just create chaos in the midfield, win the ball high up, and then from there, Griezmann can operate. And what an operator. Morata can finish a chance. Depay can come off the bench, finish a chance individually, right? Lino can provide dribble penetration from the left-hand side. But that only happens if we win our physical duels in the midfield. If Dortmund find a way to pass around that midfield block, that's where they beat us. And that's where we're going to get beat if that does happen. It was just a little fortunate that, Mkhitaryan, Barella, Çalhanoğlu got beat by that in the second leg. They couldn't make more than 3 passes after the first 15, 20 minutes. We won that physical duel. If Dortmund can avoid that, that's how they'll win this game. Because when we get stretched, bro, we get stretched, man. We really don't have good one-on-one defenders. We play a back 5. And the thing is, we don't have wingers. So we need Lino and Molina to go way up high when we do have offensive possession. That's also where we get caught, because our rotation is shit. It's not that good, bro. Yeah. So if we get beat off the pass... Yeah. We're going to get beat, man. And that's why I truly see this game as 50-50.
That's what Barca did.
Yeah, it's what... yeah, exactly. And there's also... that's what Barca did. And
twice.
I say our second weakness as well, beyond if we don't win our physical duels, we get stretched. Our second weakness is sometimes we just don't show up. It's happened a lot this season. Anybody can beat us if we do not show up. My only thinking here is that this is all we have left. We're out of the Copa del Rey. We've been out of the title race in Spain since December, November, honestly. This is all we have left. We just proved we can beat one of the better teams in Europe by beating the Italian champions Inter Milan and former runners-up. We'll feel good about going against Dortmund, but my God, man, Dortmund have a lot of weapons too.
That's the thing.
Dortmund have a lot of weapons. They have a lot of quality in the midfield. They have good dribble penetration that could be provided from players like Jadon Sancho, Daniel Malen. There's a lot of good things about Dortmund, and yeah, this is going to be a crazy, crazy even game.
There's a lot of similarities, man. When you look at this Dortmund side and Atleti, man, I would consider Dortmund to be the German Atleti with how they're in 4th place right now. They're also not playing for much in the league, but in the Champions League, this is it. This is all they have, and Terzic has done a great job with this team. You know, we criticized and we made fun, and all the jokes flew when they blew that lead to Bayern. But the truth is, they were a point away from pulling off the incredible, and that was thanks to Terzic and how he managed the team throughout the entire season. You have guys like Niklas Füllkrug coming into this team, getting double-digit goals. Julian Brandt, I've mentioned before, as almost like a mini Martin Odegaard with his creativity and his decisiveness in the final third. It's really good. It's really impactful. Malen, Marco Reus with his experience and his constant pursuit, almost like the fucking Lord of the Rings, chasing that ring, bro. Like, he's been chasing a victorious trophy here, man, for so many years. Maybe he gets into the Champions League this time, man. Marcel Sabitzer in that midfield, always been really reliable. And then at the back, although a little bit old, you have a veteran in Mats Hummels who stepped up big time in that matchup against PSV. Dortmund will be a tough test, and I know you don't deny that. I know you don't deny that, but I want people to be aware of that Dortmund is not. I know a lot of people were looking at them as potentially the most favorable matchup, and it isn't. It is not like on paper. But I think that they still prove to be a really tough test, especially for this Atletico Madrid side, who you've already went through, and I'm not even going to touch on because you did that perfectly. The reason why I see Atletico Madrid going through here is the coaching factor. Diego Simeone, I think, is on a incredible run right now, and is just so tough to beat in a knockout setting in the Champions League. But then also the fact that Dortmund, to me, really disappointed in their matchup against PSV. And I know that sounds crazy because they won 3-1 on aggregate. And, you know, if you look at like the highlights of the games, it looks like they were actually pretty dominant. They generated like 15 shots on goal in their last game against PSV at home. But to counter that, PSV generated 17, bro. 17 opportunities on this Dortmund side that were, in my opinion, really clear and weren't finished because PSV has some awful finishers on their team. Shout out to my boy Chucky Lozano. We've seen it for a decade. But beyond that, it's the fact that PSV was able to impose themselves upon this Dortmund side, especially when they were down 2-1. I saw a lot of open gaps. I saw a lot of open spaces that PSV just couldn't fully expose, but that were there for a better team to take advantage of. I think Atletico is that better team. I think they are. I think despite maybe how lack of fluidity they might be in terms of the full 11, they have a lot of good individual talent. Griezmann is one of the best players in the world when he's on it. Morata, although often criticized, can be a clinical finisher and can step up in important moments. And then all the players around them, the midfield, De Paul, Llorente, these are good players, man. Whereas for Dortmund, I think there's a limit on what they can achieve. I have Atletico going through, not super convincingly. I think it's going to be very tight. It's going to be very gritty. It's going to be very physical. But Atleti will go through, and maybe I join you at the Wanda for that semifinal appearance, my friend.
I would love that. And yes, just to make it very clear, I have Atletico winning this matchup pretty much for the same reasons that you said about Dortmund. I think if Bayern Munich has been inconsistent in the Bundesliga, Dortmund's been twice as inconsistent. I think that will definitely show once or twice, maybe 10 times, in 180 minutes of football against Atletico Madrid. I just think it's going to be very tight simply because if Terzic can set up Dortmund right, Atletico are beatable. But again, for the same reasons that you just put out, I think Simeone, I trust him. Trust him fully. The way we played against Inter Milan was remarkable. We've seen it for over 10 years. It's what Simeone does. We have a lot of players in form when they show up. When they show up, we can play almost against anybody. Almost. And I feel good about that against Dortmund because Dortmund are not a top side. We show up, we win. I think it's guaranteed if that happens.
You mentioned that you'll go to the Wanda if Atletico wins this matchup as a reward. I will counter that by imposing myself this punishment if Dortmund ends up going through. Because if you look back on all of our predictions for this year, Dortmund in the group of death, I had them going out, they go through.
Same.
Dortmund against PSV, I had them going out, they go through. Dortmund in the quarterfinals, defeating Atletico and going through to the semis, that deserves an apology letter from Reynoso. I'll write a 5-page letter apology. I'll read it here on this podcast, and I'll submit the photos online into a database where you can read the letters every single time whenever you want.
We'll send it to Dortmund.
And we'll send it to Dortmund.
We'll put it in their mailbox.
And we'll do something. But I do think that is rightfully what a Dortmund fan deserves, because I have spoken badly about them this entire season after the heartbreak they went through last year. And they have proven me wrong so far. And now here they are against Atletico Madrid in a quarterfinal matchup. There's a chance they go through, bro. And they find themselves in a semifinal Champions League appearance. I'll give them their credit. Dortmund in the semifinals. I will write that apology letter. I promise.
Doesn't that sound crazy, though?
It sounds crazy to me,
Dortmund
though, man. Like,
in the
it's great. Like this Dortmund team this year in the semis is
right.
nuts.
It's nuts, man. Last year definitely could. I honestly could have seen it. They played good football when they were at their peak, but this year, it's just been so inconsistent for them to make be a top 4 side in Europe.
And the way the bracket's set up, they could be in the final afterwards.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They could be in the final
At that
afterwards.
point, I mean, Dortmund could do anything, bro.
Yes.
Just absolutely nuts.